Welcome to your daily dose of theological German. We are on installment number 7 of Georg Gäbel's The Cult Theology of the Letter to the Hebrews. So today's sentence is another relatively straightforward one as far as the syntax goes. However, it does present some interesting things about translation because when we translate it sort of woodenly, you'll see that the syntax isn't totally your only problem when you're trying to work out a good translation in German. So if we just look here, it says of, or you might say concerning, the entrance into the Holy of Holies, or the most holy place, or something like that, is, in verse 19 and following, explicitly the talk. Okay, so you can see how that's not really a great sounding translation, and there's some stuff going on here, even with the syntax actually, that will be of relevance to getting a smoother translation in English. So let's just take a look at a couple of things quickly. So the first thing that's going on here, which is somewhat interesting, is this compound word here, which if you look it up in the dictionary, I translated it as Holy of Holies, and you will see that that is an appropriate translation given a Jewish context, which obviously the book of Hebrews is certainly that, if it's nothing else. It can also be referring to the Blessed Sacrament in Catholic context, or generically the inner sanctum of temples in any kind of religious context. But I think it's interesting to actually just parse it apart and notice that what you're dealing here with is a holiest. You have the superlative ending on heilige, and then that's modified also with the adjective, which you could translate as all. So it's the almost holy place, except this is a great example of why you should never woodenly try to do compound words into English, because almost holy is the exact opposite of what this word actually is communicating. It's not like it got close to being holy and didn't quite make it. It's not nearly holy. It's just holy with respect to all other things. And so it is of all most holy and holiest of all. And so that's why you have to remember when you are dealing with compound words in English or in German, very often the first word in the compound should actually be put into a kind of genitive relationship with the second word. And so really what you're looking at there is not all most holy, but holiest of all. That's the right way to handle that. And so it's the holiest of all. But how are you going to translate that? Well, you really need context. And so that's why you can see you might call the Blessed Sacrament the holiest of all. And if you were in a Catholic Church service, you would know that's what was being referred to. Since you're in the book of Hebrews, you know that you're talking about the tabernacle, and you know that it's talking about the inner sanctuary of the tabernacle. And so inner sanctum might be an okay translation, except for the fact that in biblical and theological discourse, we always say Holy of Holies because we get this term from the way that the Hebrew phrasing works for this within the tabernacle context in the Old Testament. The only other thing to note here, just really quickly, is that you have an equative clause, which should make this pretty simple. But of course, there's a big debate in linguistics with equative clauses as to how you decide what's the subject, what's the object or predicate. Is that even a reasonable way to think about an equative clause since it's equative? So shouldn't either one be the subject, or how's that going to work? And so in this case, though, the way that I would handle it is I think in English, it's conventional to put something which feels like the main point that you're trying to say something about as the first element in the equative clause, but that's not necessarily the case in German. And so I actually think to get a good translation here, we need to reverse this, which I didn't do in the initial translation because I wanted to show you the woodenness of it. So I circled this already, but here's your sein verb there, and so that's kind of linking two things. And then this down here, die Rede, is going to be, I would say, technically the thing you're trying to make some comment about. And so in English, I would actually put that as the first element. I would switch it around, say the talk, or probably what I would do is really nuance this given the context and say the point of discussion. And so I would say the point of discussion in verse 19 and following is explicitly concerning the entrance into the holiest place, or the Holy of Holies. And part of why I would do that is because, I mean, semantically it sort of flows in terms of what's being communicated about the point of discussion in verse 19 and following, but also because you have this prepositional phrase. I really don't think you would ever do an equative clause in English where you started with a preposition. And so I think it's important to kind of note that. And so German lets you do that, but you want to switch it around in English. So As always, I hope you found that helpful. Please do like and subscribe and make copious comments. We'll see you tomorrow.